Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome to the Totally Tubular Comic Book Vault. Today we're going to take a look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie, the comic book adaptation from 1990, published by Archie. And this is interesting because it's actually done partially by Eastman and Laird themselves, even though, of course, they didn't actually write the script for the film. Their names, of course, are on the film as, you know, having created the characters, and the script is based on a lot of the Mirage comic work, of course. But here they actually pretty much adapt the script from the film themselves, which is really kind of odd. It's kind of a strange regurgitation. It's like you have a film based on these guys' work, and then they do work based on the film. It's kind of strange. Unfortunately, they actually don't draw this. This is drawn by Jim Lawson, who does, I suppose, an adequate job, but in detail, it just doesn't live up to Eastman and Laird's work. And so anyway, the comic is laid out by Eastman, which is funny because it's actually the layouts are actually kind of my biggest beef with the book. And script is credited as Peter Laird, but he pretty much just takes the script of the film and word for word puts it into the comic with a couple of notable exceptions. The first thing I want to bring up, and part of the reason I wanted to do this is because recently Vince did a comic vault for the comic book adaptation of My Name is Bruce, and I thought it might be interesting to do a movie adaptation myself, because I haven't done this before, and I found myself watching Vince's vault thinking, what is the point of comic book adaptations of films? I think that it's mostly just a collector thing. You know, it's mostly, you have to have merchandise from a movie because inevitably there will be fans who want to buy everything from it, so you have to create things for those fans. From a story perspective, from a narrative place, what is the point of a comic book adaptation, or even a novelization for that matter? I suppose with a novelization, you can, and I've read novelizations of films, I kind of see that more than comic book adaptations, because with a novel, you can kind of expound upon things a little bit, get into characters' heads a bit, provide insights for those characters, and maybe add in some things that perhaps were cut out of an initial script, or you know, embellish a bit and make it a little bit different from the film, just in adding some scope and some complexity, because you have more room to work. You don't have more room to work on a comic book like this. In fact, that you kind of have less space because it's shorter than the movie ultimately. In fact, you know, it's an oversized comic. I think this is about 40 pages, but because it's getting this entire film in here, and it's pretty much putting the majority of the words that are spoken in the film in this oversized comic book, you've got these panel layouts where it's a whole bunch of tiny panels on a page just to fit all the words in, and that's where I got off saying that the layouts are kind of my biggest beef with this, because it's you know, it's not something I'm used to seeing with a comic book, all these just really tiny panels that you almost have to squint sometimes to look at it and see what's going on, and I think that's partially why you have an artist here that's not doing incredibly detailed art, that's doing something a little bit sketchier and a little bit more simplistic, so that you don't have a lot of these really little details, you know, minute things that you can't really see on such a tiny panel. One of the things that also makes the small panels irritating is that there are some beats from the film that just don't translate, where you'll have an entrance for a character that's done in just one very small panel that if you blink you miss. You could easily just skip right over. And in fact, there was one place where I did just skip right over and kind of wondered where it was and backtracked and went, oh, that's where it is. It's in this tiny panel right here. And that was the place where, and I know this movie extremely well. This is one of my favorite films growing up. And reading this was kind of interesting because I couldn't help but have like the soundtrack running through my head the whole way through while I was reading it, because I was hearing, of course, the voices of the characters in my head as I read their dialogue, and I kept the music was rolling through my head the whole time. So I kept thinking da 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 just the whole time I was reading it. And so you get to the place where the turtles get back to their lair, and Splinter is gone. And he's been kidnapped, obviously, and in the film, it's this extremely emotional, gut-wrenching moment where the camera spins around Raphael as he screams in agony, feeling like it's partially his fault that Splinter has disappeared, wishing that he could have been there to do something about it. He blames himself for everything in the movie. And here it's one panel. It's just and then you skip over it and you're done. The big reveals are treated that way too. I guess that's the problem with trying to translate a film directly to a comic book. If I were doing a comic book adaptation, I would try to take the story from the film and make it a comic book, if that makes any sense at all. And like I said, it's kind of odder with something that already was a comic book, because it's sort of like regurgitation. You're taking a medium, turning it into another medium, and then translating it back to the original medium. And considering that comics are storyboards that could be made movies anyway, I suppose maybe it's a little bit odd to say that that comics and movies are so different in how you would tell the stories, but it really is, because you have delivery with the way people say things, and you have cinematography and story beats in how a shot is composed that just doesn't translate the same way to a comic book. For instance, like I said, character reveals. We have Raphael, who first appears saving April from some thugs in an alley. And in the film, he of course throws his sai, and he breaks a light, and then it's dark, and you only see these tiny little glimpses of him, and the film like really makes you wait to finally see the turtles, which is really cool, because the animatronics and the suits and everything are done so well that by the time you finally see them, it's really worth the payoff, and it's quite cool. But that doesn't translate so well to the comic book, and in fact, he throws the sign, he breaks the light, and then you see him in more than just silhouette even. You see his full form, because this being a comic book, and you kind of, it's not going to be as big of a deal when you finally see the turtles the way that they're drawn here, because frankly this art is kind of subpar, that it just doesn't translate. Shredder's initial entrance isn't the big grandiose thing it is in the movie, because, I guess it could have been, but they would have needed a lot more pages, the thing is, if you had taken the film and used the storyboards of the film to create a comic book, some of that stuff probably would translate, but that's not what they did here. They did a lot of things in like a single panel, and it would have taken a whole lot more pages. So I don't know, as an adaptation, it leaves a lot to be desired. I think that, and also, since I know the film backwards and forwards, I'm not sure what even the point is of reading this, beyond just the fact that I have it, and I thought it would be an interesting experiment. But it never occurred to me to actually pick this up and thumb through it. And one thing I found kind of interesting is the small, tiny bits that are added and subtracted. For instance, they felt the need in the comic book, for whatever reason, to take every cultural reference out. So, like, when Raphael goes to see, I want to say it's Critters, he goes, in the film, he goes to see a movie wearing his trench coat and hat, and when he comes out, he has that great line, where do they come up with this stuff, which of course is funny and ironic, because he's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Where do they come up with this stuff? And that's left out of the comic. And he has another line that's not anything like as clever, and also, like, Michelangelo doing his impressions of famous movie actors, all that's cut out too. But at the same time, but it's not like it's cut for time or anything, because that's all replaced with something way less funny. And then they do try to put in the gag with them dancing to Tequila, where they say ninjutsu, completely doesn't translate to comic book. Why would you put that in there? That totally should be left out. So you know, the bit where they're dancing, da-da-da-da-da-da, ninjutsu, yeah, that's in here. There's no music. It's a comic book. It doesn't translate, and they don't tell you what the song is or anything. So I guess my point is, you couldn't even really follow some of what's going on in this unless you've seen the film. You probably wouldn't pick this up and look at it unless you've seen the film. And so maybe part of the idea here is that they figure that people will just kind of like play the movie in their head while they're reading it. You get to the very end, and there's this added scene that I don't think is very funny, but it's kind of strange that it's here. Where right at the very end, and of course I'm not going to talk about plot and characterization and stuff because you know, if you're watching this, I'm sure you've seen the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. If you haven't, I don't want to spoil it for you. You should go watch it. And at the very end, after you know Shredder has been foiled and everything, this final page is April going to a comic book publisher trying to get him to publish a Ninja Turtles comic. And he says they're too far-fetched, and I guess we're supposed to laugh because there they are in the window behind this guy as he's saying, "Oh, they're too far-fetched." Okay, that was odd. Eastman and Laird in this periodically try to insert comic book things, and when I say comic book things, I mean like people reading comic books. I very much got the sense that they were sort of irritated that there wasn't, or not that I recall, that there weren't any places in the movie where people were reading comic books. So like that moment where Danny, the son of the guy who runs the TV news network, Danny is sitting there listening to his headphones, and in the movie, his dad says, "Would you take those things off?" And in this, he says, "Quit burying your head in a comic book." And like Michelangelo reads comic books, and it's kind of funny. It's like they keep forcing that in there. They keep inserting Ninja Turtles was a comic book thing. We need comic book stuff in this. I thought that was kind of odd. Oh, there was one more interesting addition, and forgive me if I'm wrong, and this is in the film, but I really don't remember this. I'm almost positive it's not. There's that montage sequence out on the farm where April is talking about what all the turtles are doing now that they're out, now that they're in hiding. And she's talking about how, like, Raphael is keeping a constant vigil over... Leonardo's keeping a constant vigil over Raphael because he's injured and kind of in a coma for a little while. Although they don't call it that, but, you know, he's asleep for a while. And when she gets to the end of the list where she's talking about what all the turtles are doing, you know, Donatello's working on the truck with Casey Jones and all of that. She gets to the end and she says, but the one that worries me most is Michelangelo. He is getting over the edge, she says. And of course, like, the comic never comes back to that. There's never a payoff for Michelangelo is freaking out and is angry and he's over the edge. Michelangelo over the edge, really? That's fascinating. I wonder why they felt the need to put that in there. So anyway, really odd. One of the things also that's kind of fun about this is just looking at all the ads, because there's almost every ad in this is for something Ninja Turtles. There's the Ninja Turtles fan club. There's all the old video games, and or at least the ones that were out here. I think there's one for the Nintendo game at the beginning, which I remember this ad from when I was a kid, and then I think maybe there's one for like a handheld or something. I forget, but anyway, there's even a mention of a Ninja Turtles role-playing game, which I didn't even know existed. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching the Comic Book Vault. That's my review of the Ninja Turtles movie adaptation, and if you ever want to send anything for me to review on the Vault, me or Vince, you can always send things to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.